Archie, welcome, mate.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Good, all good. So this is episode 3 of the Diving Deep podcast, and I'm sat, and it is my pleasure to introduce Archie B.
Uh,
For those of you that don't know Archie out there, I'm going to give him a little bit of an intro because you need to get to know this chap. So, 1 second, get to my point. So, Archie B is a London-based producer and DJ. He's had releases so far on big labels such as Toolroom, CR2, Solar Toku, Madtech, Marleybone, and Champion Records. He's had plenty of support from big names such as Pete Tong, Claptone, Roger Sanchez, Danny Howard, Solado, Low Stepper, Sam Divine, Hannah Wants, and the list goes on. He's also supported acts from a DJ perspective such as Rudimental, Gorgon City, Hannah Wants, and the man DJ EZ. Mate, that's a star-studded bio, I've got to say. Fair play.
Cheers, man. Appreciate it. It's been a long journey. It's been a long, good journey, though.
Yeah, no. Where I want to start really is like, where did this all begin for you?
So for me, I've been DJing a long time now. I'd say nearly 25 years, but it started like the end of my school years, really, when I was about 11 or 12. I've always loved music, but when I started to leave school, I was around a few friends that were DJs at sort of like 12 and 13, and
Yeah,
we always used to listen to eight tape packs, jungle, drum and bass and
yeah,
stuff. And
yeah,
on the
yeah.
way to school,
Yeah,
we'd sit with our ear plugged in before we went into lessons and that, and have these tape packs on. And then at break time, we'd have you heard this tape or whatever, from like How to Scout, Hysteria, Slamming
yeah,
Vinyl, all of them days. Yeah, I kind of said to my older friends that they'd had already left school and they were DJing and MCs and all stuff, and I said to them, "Can you teach me how to do it?" And they sort of teach me how to DJ, and that was that. And by the time I was sort of 14, 15, I was DJing, and just I weren't DJing in clubs or anything like
yeah,
that, but we'd always go and meet up every week or a couple of times a week together on on the Technics 1210s or the belt drives, whatever anyone had, and we just have a mixing session, and that's how we got to learn and got to do it, really. So yeah.
yeah, mate.
um
I remember those days well. Exactly what you're describing with the mixtapes, because we're probably quite a similar age, and I
yeah,
remember like Jungle and stuff like that, and I remember listening to it and being like, "Fucking hell, like what's this?" Like because it was not
really.
mainstream at all, obviously. And
So
exactly the same. Our journeys getting into this pretty similar, really, because obviously when we first got into it, there was no YouTube, there was no, you just basically ended up, like you say, having a couple of mates or a mate or two that were into it. And let's be honest, they were learning. A lot of them couldn't even mix themselves because obviously
yeah,
on vinyl, it's a lot more practice involved than CDJs. And I was exactly the same. Like some of my mates were into it, and we just used to like just have a mix and learn off each other, really. So, but
yeah,
completely different times, as such, in respect of now, obviously, you've got endless tutorials on the internet and everything like that. So it's a lot more accessible to people.
mhm.
Um, so going back before sort of like dance music or anything of that genre, where did your sort of like musical influences start from? So I'm talking like from the very, very beginning.
From the very beginning, I'd say my mum, really, because my mum used to always listen to like Luther Vandross,
Yeah, yeah,
Prince, and she'd always have that on all the time. And I kind of think that she got me into music more than anything, because there wasn't really any musicians or any musical renowned people in the family. Really, it was just my
yeah,
mum who loved music and used to listen to all of these kind of old, 80s, 70s, and 80s, and she always used to play it. And I kind of think that's where I got my musical head from, if you like.
yeah,
And as I got a bit older, I kind of met people who were into music. So I think my mum was the one who really got me into it from the very beginning. But when I was really younger, I used to have a drum kit, and I used to bang on these drum kits, and I know I had a guitar as well.
yeah,
And he was just like toy guitars. So I think my mum really was the one who got me into music,
Yeah.
because my brother as well, now he's a musician and he's studying music and that, and
Mm.
obviously I think my mum also got him into it as well. So I
Yeah.
think my mum was a big player in that part of the game for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can certainly describe some similarities myself, and I think a lot of people could. That if you're from a family that sort of like quite likes their music, and I was the same. Like my parents weren't musicians or anything like that, but they were really into their music in exactly the same era, like 70s, 80s soul, quite an eclectic mix of things.
Yeah,
But there was always music playing, and I think well obviously like my sister, like I have an older sister, she likes music, but she never picked it up the way that I did. It sort of did something to me, where it sort of struck a chord, I suppose is the easiest way it was always something that I really felt was important, so probably quite similar to yourself and a lot of others, really. And
yeah.
it sort of
I got
blossoms,
my
doesn't it,
sister
from
as
there?
well. Same as
um
your sister.
so from a producer and DJ perspective, what would you sort of like class as your style or your vibe, really?
I would say my style and vibe is taken from the 90s era, but brought into 2021, or to whenever I started mixing, because jungle was my first love. And then after jungle, drum and bass, it was more like UK garage, speed garage, and houseier type of vibe. So what I've tried to do is like recreate that sound, but with a current twist on it. That's
Yeah.
what I've always said. So a lot of my tracks are like rave influenced,
Yes.
and garage influenced, and,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and vocals like that. So I'd say that's where my sound comes from.
Hmm.
I definitely say that I have a unique sound, but I
Yes.
don't stick to one genre. I like to
No, I see that.
different styles of house, because I just, it's not that I get bored of a type of house,
Hmm.
but I just make what I feel on the day, or
Yes.
what comes out comes out. I don't like to just make tech house or bass house or piano
Yeah.
house. I like to make what I feel on the day, and that's what I'm about, really.
Yeah, mate, that's wicked. I mean, I listened to quite a few of your releases last night as I was just having a bit of a chip through, just to make sure that I knew a little bit. Well, I was just informed. And I could see with the labels they've been signed to, the sort of different sort of vibes to them. I listened to your track on Champion, and I could see that was a bit more of an old school vibe. I listened to your Solo Toko release, and I could see that I could hear you, but they were all a slightly different sound, which is really, in my opinion, what you want as a producer. You want somebody to be able to recognize, right? Yeah, I can hear that's Archie, but it's not all the same.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. That's what my vision
Well,
was from the
mate,
very
you're
beginning.
definitely doing it. No two ways about that. So I had listened to probably like 7 or 8 last night, and yeah, they're wicked, mate, as well. I really like the release on Champion, right up my street. That is. I want to talk a little bit about the sort of the garage era and the two-step era, because I remember that well. Sort of that happening, and it was from the very early stages of me getting into dance music. That sort of US, and it's starting to move into UK, was like really starting to happen. And I sort of always describe this to people that when I first got into sort of like dance music in, I'd say about 96, 97. And actually a lot of the tracks that today are classed as like really big tracks, they were fresh then. So like New Birth, Anytime, Sneaker Pimps, all that some of them are, I suppose, classed as anthems, but it was a fairly new sound for the UK, wasn't it? That sort of like skippy beats and all that, but it'd been happening in the US a bit. So what
Yeah.
was your first contact of that sort of that vibe, mate?
For me, like it was kind of a speed garage type of thing, and obviously
Yeah,
the tracks you've just said, then they
yeah,
would they were the new birth. They were the new coming tracks coming through. But
yes,
I think UK garage clocked onto that straight away, and before you knew it, that was getting merged together.
that's
So
right.
like you
Yeah,
had Todd Edwards coming through, you had like the Wookiees, the Brass Tooth, and all these sounds were emerging together. So you had kind of like the speed garage and the UK garage, and they were all coming together as one.
yeah,
And I kind of remember from, I think it was about 97, 98. That's when it really took a hold. And then
100%.
you had like this, all of that 90s era as well that was getting merged together. So you had like tracks like, Armand Van Helden, You Don't Know Me. You
Yeah,
had like Dreamer.
yeah,
You had like CC Peniston. All of these
yeah,
tracks were
yeah,
getting merged together, and it was
yeah,
kind of like, you know, Surely Swing My Way, them type of tracks as well, and it was
yeah,
all coming in, and
yeah,
that's when it really took off, and these sounds were getting merged together, and that's where UK garage I think came from,
yeah.
and
I agree.
it was just an amazing time really because UK garage was huge. It really
Oh,
was,
massive, mate.
but it stayed underground for quite a long time, and then
Yeah,
when like Craig David and that came around, and Flowers and
yeah.
uh, Casey and
Piper and all that sort of stuff.
that's when it became a bit more commercial. But
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, UK garage was massive. It was like as big as kind of houses now. Do you know what I
100%.
mean? In
Yeah,
that era, because it was getting played on radio all the time, and I used to love it because I was getting loads of gigs through being a garage DJ.
yeah,
I was playing at Garage Nation
yeah,
and all, in the Brunel rooms in Swindon where they had the revolving bar, and it was an amazing stuff. Like I was warming up for EZ loads, and it was just like that was a dream come true for me. I was only like what in my early 20s or not even 20, and I was warming up for
yeah,
EZ
man.
and stuff like that. It was just mental. And this is like we touched on earlier. This is when you didn't have a phone, you didn't have any social media. You had to go out to meet people. You had to see a flyer. You had to.
Mm,
It probably wasn't even on radio or anything like that. It was just
mm,
word of mouth, flyer, dishing out flyers, and all of the things like that. And it was just, and that's how it was. It was never any of this video footage, or
oh,
it was just you had to go to the rave to hear the tunes. You had to be there to see the people. You had to
mm,
meet people. There was none of this like, oh, I'm going to watch this rave from the phone, or I'm going to
oh,
live stream it, or any of this. It was totally different back then. So yeah.
100%, mate. And like for people that weren't into dance music of that era, I don't think they realised quite how big garage and certainly UK garage actually was, because I remember that it was just say it was pretty much about the time where I started getting into dance music, and then UK garage started to really take off, and suddenly nobody was talking about Ibiza. It was all about Iron Appa, wasn't it? And it like if you want, certainly you're right. As time went on, if you wanted to have like a commercial dance hit, it was better to make a garage track really than a house, because it would get more exposure on the radio. But like Spoonie and the Dream Team being on Radio One, having their own show, it was huge, mate. And you're right. And like all the younger people getting into dance music at that time, they wanted to go to garage raves. They weren't interested in like house music. Yes, it was still around, and I'm not saying that it went anywhere, but garage took the forefront, didn't it?
Really
Really.
did, really did.
And it was a special time. I was talking to the chap who I did my first podcast with, Bricks and Mortar. Yet again, a little bit older than me, but knows the era well, got into it in the early 90s. And we were talking about this, that when the garage takeover happened, mate, I've got to tell you about a documentary that if you get 2 minutes to watch it, it's called Rewind Forever. And it talks about the whole emergence of the garage scene. It's really good if you get a chance.
Where can I find that?
YouTube.
YouTube. Okay,
Yeah,
amazing. I watched there was some stuff on BBC iPlayer the other day. There was like a jungle one, a garage one, and I think there
yeah,
was another one, but it was only like a 15-minute video, but it took me back. You know what I mean? Like Sweet Female Attitude were on there,
yeah.
Wookie was on there, and it just took me back.
It's it was a special time because what you're describing with the flyers and everything like that, like when I first got into it, I assume like yourself, it was all vinyl. There was none of this stuff, and you used to go to the record shop and they'd have all the flyers there, and you'd see people, and you'd see a lot of the same people, and you'd talk to people, and they would tell you where they were DJing, and you'd go to it, and it was like being part of like something that it was so far away from the mainstream. Yes, it got more mainstream when it started to go on the radio a lot and stuff like that. And I'm even talking like not just about garage here. I'm just talking about that scene. And I used to say one of the things that saddens me, I mean, I do still collect a bit of vinyl. It's just trying to find somewhere to buy it from that isn't the internet, because it's literally impossible. But I say, like, it is such a special time. It was such a special time, like going into a record shop and, you know, purchasing records and seeing people in there, different sorts of people, them all talking about music, events and stuff like that. I'm assuming you probably experienced a lot of similar stuff.
Oh, 100%, I can totally relate. That was my Saturday. I used to go to a record shop every Saturday, spend all my money that I, you know, all my pocket money or whatever on I get like 5 or 6 records. They were like, you know, either $6.99, $7.99 or whatever. I used to go to London to Rhythm Division as well. It was like one of the best record stores in the country. And I usually spend all my money and time in these record stores. And the whole of a Saturday, we used to just all meet. Like, there's one place in Oxford called Massive Records, and we always used to go there every Saturday.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, we used to just people used to say where they're playing, whatever, and then we used to go off to that night, and you know, and just the buzz around vinyl was just ridiculous, because you know that if you got to know the guy that worked in the record store,
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Acetate 10 presses that they'd only give to special people.
Yeah.
You know, I know that EZ used to go to Rhythm Division, and I used to say to a guy called Mark, look, please send me you know, EZ used to go in there and get one, and then I used to go in there and get a copy. So I was like one of the DJs that have these amazingly exclusive vinyls that no one could ever get. Sometimes they'd be on Clear Records or Orange Records or like whatever, and it was just that buzz there. It was just, I can't even describe what it was like to be building up that week, to be going record shopping on a Saturday and meeting all them guys in there and getting the vinyl. You know, you took that vinyl home and you played it on your belt drive decks, and it was just the most incredible feeling. I've got this tune. Other 10 other people have got it, and it's like
it was exclusive, wasn't it? You know, and not like today. You can get hold of pretty much anything, you know, really, you know, within reason. But then it wasn't the case. You're absolutely right. You ended up developing a relationship with the guy who ran the record store or worked in there. And you're right, they would get to know what you liked, what you were about, and they would keep it to one side for you, wouldn't they? Because they know you'd be coming in on the Saturday. And you know, the place that I used to go to, a few, like there was a FOP records, but obviously you didn't really get loads of the white label stuff in there, but you get like the newer releases, and they still had loads you could go through. I had a really good record store where exactly what you're describing, the owner, because he knew I was in there every Saturday going to spend like 40-50 quid, he would put it to one side, and he'd walk in and just be like, mate, I think you're going to like these. And I'd be like, brilliant, give me like 10 records to listen to, X amount of white labels. And reality is, these were records that there was maybe only X amount pressed, or they were like way before they were ever going to come out, because that's how it used to happen, you know, like white labels. It still happens like that to a degree, because obviously labels still do promo and everything like that before the release, and the DJs will send their music to other people, you know, to get a bit of a test on it and stuff like that. But the white label was the way, wasn't it? You know, that you X amount to the record stores, X amount to the tastemakers, and suddenly that track would start to gain traction if it was well received. And then boom, a big record label would come along and be like, right, we'll have it.
Yeah, 100% Locked On or someone, or Strictly Rhythm, or any of them labels. But the only way you could listen to a track them days was to go into the record store and listen to it. You couldn't listen to it on the internet. You couldn't get promo. So the only way you would hear that track is when you went to the record store, or you heard EZ or Martin Lana or Rough Cut Lloyd or one of them big DJs playing it, because they used to get it. Obviously, they would get it a few weeks before we got it, just because that's how it was. They were like exclusive to them DJs. So you'd go out to a rave, to a Garage Nation or whatever, and you'd hear a tune and you go, oh my God, what is that tune? And then you'd be hunting for it. And then a few weeks later, it would come in on a white label with the name of it, and you'd be like, oh my God, this is that tune EZ played, or something like that. And it was just, it's just mega, really, to be fair.
It was and mate, I completely know exactly everything you're talking about, because when you used to go to those events or anything like that, you would hear obviously some tunes, and it's all subjective. They wouldn't resonate with other people. They might resonate with you, and you'd be like, "Fucking hell, like what is that? Do you know what I mean? What is it?" And mate, that's where I started like. So I'd like be listening to Radio 1 all the time, all the essential mixes, because I'd be like, you know, they might play it on there, and like give you a track listing at that point, you know, or they'd tell you, that's, you know, such and such, and then you could go to the record shop and try and find it, or ask somebody who might know about it, you know, stuff like that. But there was definitely a romance that doesn't exist now, because like I was saying to say Bricks, who I did the first podcast with, is that how I used to also do it is I used to buy DJ Mag.
Oh yeah.
Have a look through what the DJ's hottest records were and that, and I'd be like, right, off to the record shop I go with these tracks in mind. But a lot of the time you didn't get them, you know what I mean? But you find something else along the way, you know, like you say, like maybe a white label or something like that. But yeah, mate, I've got to say, it's I wish we could bring it back, really, but it's moved on, hasn't it?
The experience was just another level. Like the feeling all around that type of flex we're talking around was just different. It was just so different back then to it is now. You know, like you say with DJ Mag, there used to be a column in the back of the DJ Mag that was like a garage section or a house section, and you used to go through them tunes. They used to be rated, and then they were either coming out or they were being, you know, just about to come out. But I can't describe the feeling to someone who's not been there and done it. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So
here's one for you then, as a bit of a comedy. Did you ever used to read DJ Mag, and like you say, they'd be like rated and described, and you'd sit there and think, oh, that sounds wicked. And you'd get to the record shop and you'd actually find the record, and you put the needle on and realise that it was shit.
Yeah. Vice versa as well. You'd think it's shit, and then you listen to it and go, "Oh my god, this is actually banging." So, yeah.
Mate, funny times. So, in respect of like what you've done so far, and mate, it doesn't even necessarily need to be music based. Are there any things that you're sort of like most proud of? I want to talk a little bit about your most recent release, because I'm assuming that's probably going to be definitely in there, if not the one. But yeah, just describe to me, mate, some things that you've been sort of like quite proud of that you've achieved throughout your time in music, or it could be anything really.
I think one of my biggest achievements was I was quite a big lad from when I was in my teens. You know, I was like 21, 22 stone, and I got into my early 20s, and I had a few health scares, and the doctor sort of said to me, you know, if you don't start sorting out your diet and sorting out your lifestyle, you're going to be dead soon. So I just went on a major sort of health kick and I think I lost about 8 stone in the end. So by the time when I got to like 23 or 24, I'd lost loads of weight. I was gymming it all the time. I stopped drinking and stuff, because I used to drink loads when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I just lost loads of weight, and I've managed to keep it off, and my lifestyle's totally changed now, where I'm training every day, I'm exercising, sometimes gymming it twice a day if I can, you know what I mean, as well as it just keeps my head like clear and focused to do music as well. But I think that was one of my biggest achievements, and I'd say within music I had a lot of goals set. When I've been DJing now, I think like nearly 25 years. I started when I was 13, so I've been DJing a long time. I've played at some amazing places, DJed with some amazing DJs. I've kind of, every goal I've set myself, I've kind of hit. But within, I'd say, the last few years, one of my main goals was to play in the main room at Ministry of Sound. That was like one of my pinnacles, and I got to do that before lockdown, before COVID hit. So that was a big thing for me. Signing for Toolroom was a massive thing for me. Signing for Sonny Fodera's label, Solotoko, that was a big thing for me. So I played with him years ago, and I said to him, like, I want to sign to your label, and I kept sending him.
Yeah.
And he was like, he's not right. And then eventually got a track through to him, and he was like, yeah, we're going to sign it. And so that was a big thing for me as well. There's quite a few things off the top. Playing on Ibiza, that was an amazing experience on a rooftop. That was unbelievable, with some of my friends as well. So yeah, there are a few things that stand out from the top of my head. But I mean, it's not really been about moments. It's been about the journey for me. Like, I've always looked at, this is what I want to achieve, that's what I want to achieve, but I'm just enjoying the journey now. And these little things that are, well, not little things, but things that are happening, I'm just enjoying every minute, and just I'm in a really good place with my music and my life and the balance and everything like that. So that's all I can really say on that one.
Nothing but respect for you, mate. I just want to like go through a couple of these points. In respect to the weight loss, mate, that's amazing, because anybody who knows me, I mean, I've never like really like got like severely overweight, but mate, I've been bigger and thinner and bigger and thinner. My weight can vary from year to year, anywhere from about 2 stone difference. And I'll be honest, I've never ever found, I know exactly how to do it, because I've been everything from like, I mean, I'm not a really tall person. I'm like 5'9", so I've been everything from like 13 stone to 10.5 stone and everywhere in between. So absolute respect for you, mate. The fact that you've managed to get that amount of weight off, keep it off, and obviously you're in a really good mental place, because you're training all the time and everything like that, mate. After the podcast, I might ask you for some tips, I've got to say.
Of course, mate. I'm happy to.
In respect to the music, mate, I've got a lot of admiration, because people that don't produce music don't probably realise the level of knockbacks you actually get, and especially when you're trying to sign for these bigger labels like Sonny Fodera's label, where the reality is they don't just take any music, do they? They only take stuff that they feel is right for the label, that they think, yeah, is credible and everything like that. And the amount of years it can take to actually get tracks signed to these labels, of keep trying and trying and trying and trying. And we're in a similar area, you know. I love Defected, I love Nervous Records, you know, I love all that housey sound.
Classic.
Yeah, that classic sound. And like, I've had loads of knockbacks from Defected, you know, like I've probably had like, yeah, probably had 4 or 5 over this last like 2 years, because it's and like Wes Saunders always says to me, it's like, mate, not this time, but we'll get one for you. And I'm like,
yeah, I've heard it.
It's one of them, you know. It's part of the course. So, mate, huge congrats to the fact that you've actually managed to land some on your target labels, and obviously Tool Room being the main one. So, you've had a release out on Tool Room recently called "Hold Me Close" from Right and Saying.
Yeah.
So, mate, I want to talk a little bit about that. Is there any sort of like origin story behind it? Is there anything that how did it come about?
It's a funny story actually, because obviously I'd been trying to get on touring for ages, and I kind of like not give up, but I just kind of thought, look, this track's not going to be right, or this track's not going to be right. And there's a label called Love and Other, and it's a sister label for Touring, and I didn't know that at the time. So I got a little playlist ready with some tracks. I thought these could suit that label better than Touring. So I've sent Love and Other, like I think 4 of my tightest tracks or whatever, and I thought, sent it away. 2 minutes later, I had an email back from a guy called Sean. And he's gone, hello mate, how you doing? You're from Oxford, aren't you? My cousins live in Oxford. He told me his cousin's name, and they're my best mates. Like, they live down the road from me. So I've gone like, oh, I know who you are. You're Sean. You used to live in Oxford. And he's like, yeah. So that just broke the ice straight away. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. He's like, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take these away, have a listen to them, and get back to you as soon as possible. And that was that really. And kind of, he got back. I'd seen a couple of the guys from the, you know, when you look on SoundCloud and you can see who plays your tracks and that. Yeah. I saw that he was listening to a few of them, and then I saw the guys at Touring were listening to it. I was like, hold on a minute, what's going on? Nice. And then he's got back to me and he's like, do you know what? None of these labels are right for Love and Other, but Touring want to take this one. And I was like, wow, okay. So kind of, it was a real blessing in disguise, because first of all, we broke the ice because I'm best mates with his cousins. Yeah. And then he'd said they're not right for his label, but he still sent them to Touring, because he's obviously the guy, the A&R for the sister label, and they wanted to sign it. So it was just like a win-win situation for me. Do you know what I mean? It was like a back door through to the front door. And and that's how it kind of happened. And that's how the release, because with Touring, it's very hard to get a proper upfront release on the label
100%.
straight away. It just doesn't happen like that. You need to, tour room's like a family, do you know what I mean? So, and there's so many people in that family, it's taken them a couple of compilations or a couple of albums to get to the main label. So for me, it's a massive step forwards.
100%, mate. 100%.
Yeah, and that's how it happened, really. So it was kind of a big blessing in disguise.
Yeah, mate, that's amazing. Yeah, and you're absolutely right about Tool Room. You know, I did a couple of production courses with them a while ago, and they're a fantastic label to work with in respect of. I mean, I've never signed a track to them, but the production courses I did, you know, like Pete Griffiths, who's like one of their like
I know Pete.
main guys, and that. I've got nothing but good words to say about them. You know, they were so helpful, so friendly, everything. And you're right, it's very difficult to get like a track signed to their main label, like a single release, unless you've come through the ranks or for whatever reason you've developed a massive buzz around you. You know, like huge. You really have to be like kicking it out of the park.
Massive track, do you know what I mean? It's like it's gone through all of their A&Rs and they've all gone, this is a big one, you know. That could happen, but
it's rare, isn't it?
Very rare. So
very rare. Yeah, unless you've got like 100,000 followers, or you know, you've been at it for years and they want to work with you. So, mate, huge congrats on that. And I see you've got one that's just come out on Who's label as well. I mean, are they called Who, or is it WH0, or I'm assuming it's Who, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Who, but it's just a different way of spell Who.
Yeah.
So it's like WH0, but it's the way they say Who.
Yes.
So,
I mean, mate, I'm a big fan of them, I've got to say. I mean, I would like to know who they are, but I mean, they release, like, all the stuff they release is sick, you know.
They're incredibly talented producers, and I actually personally know them.
Right, okay.
I'm not going to say who they are, but one of them is an incredible talent who used to produce for Prodigy.
Yeah.
And another one, I met him sort of, I don't know, 5 years ago, and he is an incredible producer as well. I've done a bit of work with him, but it was just a bit of like, you know, at his studio and stuff. But they're so very, really nice, humble lads, but they're both incredible producers. Like, I'm talking, these guys have got 30 years experience behind both of them, and they really are the nuts. So I only wish them well and expect big things. Like, they could be anything they wanted. They could be the next Daft Punk if they wanted to be, because they are that talented and that humble, and they're just, you know,
what they've got going on is actually quite hard to achieve now, whereas they're not showing their identity. It's all about the music. The music's fucking phenomenal, most of it, you know. Like, I mean, even the remixes they do, they like, even that Basement Jaxx Romeo remix they did, you know, everything they put their twist on is sick, you know, generally speaking.
The quality of their tracks is like 100% up there, because they've got all that experience and all that knowledge, and their mixing is so tight, and they spend hours and hours on their tracks, and it's just, that's why they're so good, because the music speaks for itself.
And to try and build a real successful, I don't know if you want to call it a brand, without showing your face today, it's quite a hard thing to do.
Very hard. And it's taken them a long time to get to where they've gotten to, but they've just pushed forward and just kept going and just believed in what they're doing. So
they're just going to go on and on, aren't they? Because like they're all over national radio and everything now. So fair play. What's sort of like the dream for you, mate? Where would you, in a perfect world, where would you love to take this?
Like I said to you, for me, it's about the journey at the minute. I'm just enjoying every moment I get, every set I get, every track I make is different now. It's all a unique experience. I've got long-term goals in place, but I just, for the minute now, you know, life's so short. You never know when it's gonna, you know, something's gonna crop up. So for me, at the minute, I'm just enjoying the moment, enjoying the journey, loving producing at the minute, loving DJing. You know, my end goal has always been to probably sign to Defected, or to be DJing with Defected, or you know, obviously Radio One. I've had Radio One plays before, so some of them dreams have already come true. But maybe, you know, like a guest mix with Danny Howard or something like that. That would be an ultimate dream. You know, I've just done a guest mix with Mark Knight.
Yeah, seen that.
That was proper up there with one of
Yeah.
my.
Thank you for the play, mate, as well.
Mate, love the track, by the way. I've
Do
been playing
appreciate
it
it.
on a few of my last mixes as well. That track is really, it's a good track to fit into the middle to the end part of the
Yeah.
mixes, because I like to play a bit of that kind of garagey style, and that's
Yeah.
what it's about for me. It's a great track. I know it's out on
Thank you,
Black
mate.
big label, so yeah, congrats on that too.
No,
But
appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
you know, Low Step is a great guy as well. And
Yeah.
no, but for me, that Mark Knight guest mix was one that I've done a Salado guest mix as well, and that was a big one for me as well to get on the spot with them. But to get on Mark Knight on Tour Room was just as big. So you know, I'm pretty proud of that. But like long term goals are probably defected and DJing in Ibiza for one of the super clubs. But like I said to you, the journey is what's important right now.
Yeah. No, mate, that it's a very good way to look at it, because I'm the same. You know, I've actually got them wrote on the wall here. I've got some long-term goals. I've got some stuff that I want to try and achieve in like next to 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
But it's I always think, mate, we're quite blessed to be able to do what we're doing. You know, whether or not you can do it full-time, part-time, or it's just a hobby that you really enjoy. I was thinking to myself, like, to be able to do something and earn a little bit of money from what you actually really have an interest in is a blessing that, you know, whatever way you look at it, not that many people in their lives are able to pursue.
100%. It's a big blessing. We're living the dream basically. That's the way I see it, because a lot of people go to work and they don't like what they do. Whereas for me and you, if I'm going to, I don't even class it work. DJing is not work for me, but if I'm earning some money from it, you can't get better than that.
No, mate, I always think to myself, even when I'm playing shit gigs that I don't want to play, which every DJ, unless you've really quite far along with it, which you definitely will be, mate, it's all just time based, isn't it? You know, and the more your tracks blow up and everything like that, it'll come. But every DJ plays shit gigs, but I stand there and, you know, sometimes you think, oh God, like, I wish it was busier, or I wish I wasn't having to do this. But then I think, hang on a sec, like, this is still a million times better than my 9 to 5 that I used to have, that I used to hate.
Yeah, so true, man. You know, it's just with DJing, you just got to trust the process. Like we've all DJed to no one, and we've all DJed to someone, but no matter who you're playing to, you always got to still be that person, be that DJ, and always turn up, because you never know who's listening. You know, them two people that might be out in the crowd, you might be giving them the best experience of their life. And if they come up to you at the end of the night and say you made their night, well, that's made my night as well at the end of the day. If someone's had a good time, that's made it for me. So
yeah, it is an absolute pleasure to play music to people. I think for me, I've often tried to think, like, where did this come from? Because even when I used to go into the pub with my mates, I'd always like be on the jukebox, you know. I'd always be, because there was something about the fact that I really took pleasure in seeing the impact that music had on other people. You know, it's a connector, isn't it? It's sort of like it connects
music
people.
connects us.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing. Are you able to talk about a little bit of things that maybe you've got in the pipeline, or you're not allowed to? Or
no, to be honest with you, this month was a big month for me with releases. It kind of like that was where everything was. Moving forwards, I've got a release on James Hype's label, Stereo Hype. That's coming soon.
Yeah.
I've just done a remix for a guy called Agency, which is coming out on Anticode in a couple of weeks' time.
I know the guy.
Olivia Newton-John, Physical, Make a Move on Me. He's done a twist on that, and I've done an official remix for him. So that's a big one.
I need to hear that.
That's coming out. To be fair, that's really it for the time being. I've got some stuff lined up for now. I've got a few tracks sat there that I'm looking for labels for and stuff, but I've made all these connections in the last couple of months that I'm not really too fussy about it. I've got loads of gigs coming up, like in my hometown. And I'm just enjoying it. Like I said, I'm not trying to be this label, that label, whatever. I'm just taking things as it comes. And if a label wants to sign me on music, then great. But I'm just enjoying it, and there's a couple of good releases out. Have I got anything next year? I think I've got a few bits and pieces lined up for next year, but I'd rather not talk about them until they come along. So but yeah, this month's been a big one. It's been a touring release. It's been a Who Worked release. It's been an Anti-Codon release, and then what was it last month? I released on. Was it Marleybone was the one with Troy Denari. That was the month before, and then Solo Toko was the month before that. So it's been great. Yeah, it's probably been my biggest year since the CR2 Records kind of days, which was about 2014-15. That's when I was at the beginning of my journey. So it's been a big year for me, really, to be fair.
Yeah, so, mate, you're smashing it, dude. Honestly, like,
thank you, man. I appreciate
brilliant to see. So getting towards the end of things, are there sort of like, for people that are either getting into this, or I don't know, just it could be anybody, but I suppose people that get either wanting to get into the dance music industry or producing, DJing, whatever, have you got like maybe 3 pieces of advice that you could offer them from what you know now?
Yeah, sure. I'd say the first and foremost is sort of believe in yourself. Always believe in your sound. Like if you're making a style or a sound, believe in it, and don't let anyone tell you anything different. If that's what you want to make, believe in it and move forward with it, because other people will try and influence you, or a lot of people won't support what you're doing. But as long as you support what you're doing and what you're believing in, and you're happy with what you're making, push it as far as you can push it, because that's how you will break through. If you try copying people or like emulating other people's sounds, you probably won't get anywhere. It's about being unique. It's about being yourself and believing in yourself. So I'd say that's the first one. I'd say the second one is always try to network. Always try to build relationships with people, even if you have to go to gigs, whether you can be, keep and try and support other people as well. Like, because when you have something big happening to you, like, you want support from them. So like, I'd say always like keep the network tight, support people when you can, and then hopefully they will support you back when something big or release happens for you. So I'd say first and foremost, believe in yourself and your sound. Secondly, network and keep your options open to learning new things, meeting new people, like trying different things on events, like networking like that. I'll probably say the third one is what can I say? The third one is just be yourself. I'd say that be yourself, and just don't try and be someone you're not. And just try and stay as humble as you can, because life will this music game will humble you. When you think that you're bigger than music, or you think that you've gone to that next level, something will always happen and bring you back down to earth. So just try and keep it under your hat, and just just do your own thing. Do your own thing, and don't listen to any outside noise. Just and just be nice as well. Be a nice person. That's the main thing.
100%, mate. There are 3 points that I 100% support. Your first point around, doing what you want to do in respect to your music. I sort of learned that, it wasn't probably even that long ago. It was probably a couple of years ago, where I'm sure you've heard of Mark Spence.
Yeah, I know Mark Spence. Yeah, he's a Birmingham, actually.
Yes, so because I'm quite close to Birmingham, I've still got to know him over time, over the last few years, and sat and spoke to him about music, and he did a remix for my label, and so on and so forth. And I was like talking to him about, say a few years ago, I was like, mate, I'm sending my music to like other producers, and they all come back with a different thing, and it's like you don't know what to like. And he was like, mate, and he's a proper Brummie Mark. He was like, bro, listen. He's like, stop it. He was like, stop sending your music to everybody. He was like, yes, if you want to send it to 1 or 2 people that you trust or that, but stop sending it to loads of producers, because all they're going to do is they're going to listen to it through their own lenses of how they like to produce their music. And they're going to come back and say, oh, mate, you know, like, I think you need to do this. I think you need to do that with it. It says, and all that's going to happen is you're going to start going all over the place. It's like, it's first and foremost, and it's never gone out of my mind. It's like, it's your art. It says, and it's nobody else's. It says, and basically, because I'd experienced things where people would say it's good, but I wouldn't put it out there, you know, like, and you think to yourself, like, well, why not? You know, and that's in my mind. I was like, well, I'm happy with it. And he said to me, he was like, if you're happy with it and you believe in it, he was like, put it out there. You know, if you can put it out there, put it out there. And it always stuck with me because, you know, for instance, like from a producer's perspective, you know, when you make a track and there's times where you know, when you're doing it, you think, oh yeah, like this is fucking like, this has got something. There's other times where you think the track's good and you get to the end of it, but you know it's probably not the best thing you've ever made. But not everything can be the best track you've ever made. No. And the thing is that if all you're ever going to do is basically release music that you think is the best thing you've ever made, you'll never ever put any music out. No. Am I right?
You'll probably, like you say, you're absolutely spot on. You know, it'd be 1 in 10 tracks, wouldn't it? Do you know what I mean? You can't always make a banger. You can't always do that, because sometimes you make a track you don't think it's going to do anything, and that's the track that will be big. Like that track I released on Touring Records, it was probably at the bottom of my playlist, and I thought it was just whatever, and then it got signed to Touring, so I was like, wow, do you know what I mean? So, and the track that I thought was going to be the biggest one, I struggled to sign it, and eventually signed it anyway, but I was like, this is my baby, like, why is no one connecting to it like I did? So totally bang on, mate. So like I say, you are right, and Mark's totally right what he's saying. You've just got to do what you're doing, and if you're happy with it, it shouldn't matter, because that's your sound, that's what you've made, and if you want to put it out there and if you feel good about it, you know, it'll do what it do. Once it's out there into the atmosphere, once it's out there into the earth, whatever happens is going to happen. So
I completely agree, mate. It was probably like one of my driving motivations for starting my own label, because I was like, okay, I was thinking about this, like I probably started a label a lot sooner than really in hindsight I would have. Because actually, once you've really got a lot of hype around you, actually, when you start a label, when you've made a lot of connections, it's easier to get people to come onto the label and vice versa. 100%. But I was still working in a job at that point, and I got furloughed in the first coronavirus situations. I had so much time on my hands. I was like, you know, like what? Apart from making music, what am I actually going to do? You know, like. My missus didn't want me knocking around the house all the time. So I was like, right, okay. I was like, I'd always had this long-term vision of starting my own label, but I was like, well, I could get the groundwork done now, you know, like think of a name for it, you know, just get the wheels in motion. What I started to realize, I was like, as I was trying to like, you know, because when you first start out and you release records on really small labels, you know, no offense to them, they'll take anything. Really, you know, because they just want the releases and that. But as your music starts to get better and as you start getting up the ranks of the labels, they don't take anything, and you know, you get knockbacks. And it doesn't mean that the music isn't good, it's just for them there and now, it isn't for them. Right.
Yeah.
So I started my label because I was like, well, if I think it's good, I can still get it out there, I can still do promo, I can still like promote the track. I have a bit more control. And what my strategy really is now, mate, is like yourself, I've got a couple of top labels that I want to release on. So once I've made a batch of music of like 12 tracks, I'll sit and look through it and be like, right, what do I think's the best? You know, what do I think suits where? Some of them never see the light of day because I just think, don't know, you know, I don't know quite where they could go. But I send them to your top labels, and if they are not interested, maybe apart from Simmer, because it's a really good fit for my personal sound, I'll be honest, other than that, my stance next year was I'll just bring it out on my own label, because I've got control.
you've got full control over it. You've got full control who it goes to, where it goes to,
Yeah.
and then if anything goes wrong, you can pull it back. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And that's sort of like been my strategy. But it's, mate, it's such an interesting point, because I think there's probably so many producers out there, and I'll be straight, apart from at the very beginning, it's not something that I've ever worried about too much, because I think as you get older, you accept the fact that, you know, with the social media sort of era we're in and everything, whatever you do is going to get judged, and just your music will as well. And if you come from that mindset of, oh, I don't want to release anything unless I think it's perfect, you're severely holding yourself back as a producer, I think.
You are.
So, yeah, mate, those 3 tips are wicked, and I think will definitely help people. So, coming towards the end, mate, where can the listeners and people that come across this, where can they find you?
So, I'm based in Oxford. All of my social network sites are just Archie B. On my Instagram's Archie Bizagram. My SoundCloud is Archie B, and my Twitter is Archie B DJ. So if you just type in Archie B, that's where you can find me on all of my socials. I'm based in Oxford. I DJ in Oxford quite a bit. I do the Alchemist, the IV on alternate weeks. So I have a regular thing, locked down. And then whenever I get booked to do something out of town or in London, then I kind of do that. But I'll be updating everything on my socials. So if you follow me on there, that's where you can really find me.
Yeah, mate, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. I think we've got quite a lot of similarities in our journey through sort of like dance music. 100%. So, mate, 100%. So yeah, thank you very much, mate. Hang on, because I'm going to stop the recording. We'll have a chat afterwards.
Yeah,
all right,
definitely. Nice one, mate. Wicked.